You're not just thinking about this once, but you're just being reviewed by, being encouraged by it every week. And then I said to the guy, listen, Greg's messages were great when he was here at our national staff conference, but we've got those recorded, converted into an MP3, throw it on your phone and go back to those so you don't forget. Just constant reminder of why we're doing what we're doing and the fuel for that. We're asking and telling our guys to go through the Gospelize Your Team 12-part video series, basically
let me just
video format.
Let me just jump in real quick because one of the things that I feel, I think you guys are doing it right. I feel uncomfortable being the only voice, in this. I feel like the more that we collectively can develop videos, blogs, gospel advancing tools, we kind of have a long head start, so I understand this. But just as a side note, I think if we can get more content, more partners, so it's not just, my face and my voice, but our collective voices, the more it's going to feel like a movement, the more it will be a movement, not just,
absolutely.
Another thing from Dare to Share, it's going to be a collective. So as you get national voices and even global voices that can articulate perspectives, best practices, tools, resources, videos, whatever, we can collectively potentially get that material out there. And that's for everybody. We did, Daryl, we did that, Randy and I did that article on running, together. But more things, more tools, resources, voices, so that we have a collective voice together. I think.
Agreed.
What we got now, and it's great. I think this is something to start with, but just to cast to the future, it's got to be a collective voice, not a singular voice.
Yeah, one of the things Brian and I have been talking about, Brian leads our youth ministry podcast, and we just started it last year, so we're finishing the year, and then we're every week, and we're doing monthly. So we were planning out next year, and we had talked about we really need to we've had Greg on the podcast a couple times, and the one thing we love is that Greg, you always pretty much hit on the 7 principles. You guide and basically say that. But what we're looking at is saying we need to bring other voices in. So what we're going to be doing is connecting with you guys saying we want to interview a couple people who have led or are leading gospel advancing ministries and just tell their story. Here's what my ministry was like before. Why did it change? What was the catalyst? And what is God doing right now? We feel like those stories could be a catalyst as well for moving forward. So as we get those posted and so on, we'll let you guys know, and you guys can bring those in. So that's the beginning point for us right now. We feel like we can do that. It's somebody who's done it.
In fact, if with that, I don't know if Brian's already done that, but
no.
If you've got recommendations, and you say, wow, these are like 2 or 3 or 4 youth groups that have been completely turned around and transformed because they're all in. If you could send that to us, we'll ask them if they'll come on our podcast.
Yeah. David Livingston used a few of the trainers in the Piedmont region for his mid-year training in January. And the idea actually came to me from interacting with David, who had talked to one of the, I don't remember who it was because I didn't interact with him, but he said, let me just tell you what God did. And he just told the story, and I thought, wow, that's going to be powerful as he shares. And David's only discouragement of the conference was he needed more time to really get into telling the whole story. So that could be a 2-part podcast. But I told Brian we can spurt those throughout the year, do 2 or 3 of them, and even if they're 2 podcasts long, we feel like that's something that can really be a great fuel.
I also think just something to consider is even some of the members from the Gospel Advancing Roundtable, that ideas, tools, resources, philosophy, strategies, as we all kind of get to know each other, like, man, that'd be a great podcast right there,
Excellent.
So that we're collectively working together leveraging our strengths. So I think it's great.
Good. We're sending a bunch of our guys have already been to Lead the Cause. In fact, Chris and I were talking yesterday, and as of next week, we'll have had a staff member either internationally or nationally at all of the Lead the Cause. Week will be our largest. I think we've got 7 guys. It'll be 6 or 7 going to DC. But the feedback, like Andy Anderson was with you guys last week, he was texting me and emailing me updates, and he just thought it was really awesome. And really, he wants to come out in December, because I had told our staff maybe some of them will go out, and then we kind of said, well, our whole leadership team's going out. He's like, well, I want to go. So he was.
They both were really pumped. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. One thing we're doing, again, this is all, remember, we're in this kind of like, we need to make it part of us. So we have a weekly phone call that one of our regional coordinators does with our staff every week. We got wildly important goals, like the main thing we're trying to do and focus. And we felt like this has got to be, if it's going to be central to what we do. So we're adding it as a tracking thing that we're doing. We're tracking gospel conversations and talking about them, just like we would ask a youth group to do. So we're taking 5 for the Cause every week with our staff. That's going to be beginning this fall as the guys begin to do that. Just to share gospel conversations. Again, what Greg, you were just saying, is just trying to normalize this and say, this is not just something we did last year and it was great and now we're on to other things, but that it becomes part of our DNA. And that's just going to take a while. Like, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 years for us to really get it integrated like we want to.
John, quick question. And I'll be real quick, but stereotypically, I think if you guys being more in the Northeast, would that be where your central
Northeast,
operation is?
I would say East Coast, Midwest is primarily our audience.
Okay.
John, a question. I was looking at Lead the Cause in your site, and I see you're going to be at McLean Bible Church next week.
Yeah.
So do you have your ways of kind of spreading this around DC, Metro DC? You have a church that's already modeled what you're, gospel advancing pretty well, and is that can then be like an example to other churches in the Metro DC area?
A church that we're working with, not that I'm aware of. We are literally just, our guys in May came through it. They read the book, but we had been integrating. We've been up to Dare to Share, been talking with the team there. And after May was when we really developed this document. I traveled to each of the region. I walked through each of the guys with that. They had already been identifying a church that they would desire to work with, and churches that said, yeah, this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. They've read Greg's book and they're saying, yeah, I want to do this. So now our guys are just beginning that process. So a year or 2 from now, Lord willing, we will have one in each region.
And John, what I think, I remember when we were at the YMEC 2 years ago, I think the guy was there from McLean Bible Church who was pretty powerful testimony. We're on the front end of this, and we work with about 500 to 600 churches right now, and we are involved in evangelism discipleship with them. But our goal is to see those 500 to 600 churches all become gospel advancing ministries. And so what you're seeing right here is the strategy of how do we go to the next level with them. And then our goal is to see it grow to 2,000 churches around the U.S. at least. So as we have success stories, we will be sharing them with you.
Absolutely.
And
it's a little bit early, but what the idea is, it can be, like a city movement, for instance. You get McLean. I mean, they're a really good anchor, and then you get up, Mark Batterson's church and others in the area. So, really
that is exactly. I mean, any ideas? I mean, as we're talking, Greg's talking, as people have ideas. I mean, we're all ears, because we're taking our first baby steps in this and trying to figure out how do we implement it. So I told Chris, I really need to be working. I've been an area missionary on the field. I've been with Word of Life for years, but now removed from working with the local church just because of my role. And Chris, I feel like I can't just relegate that to our men. And I've been connecting with some churches here, and I'm looking at, okay, who could I connect with to be involved, just like we're asking our guys, just one church that I could be involved in so that I can have boots on the ground experience as well. I don't want to be someone who's not doing that. So we're still working through that on our level.
Mm-hmm.
So really the rest of this is just our plan. We actually had a plan and then met with Jason Lamb and Jason Lowen. They gave us some feedback as we were walking through. It actually helped us think more of a slower process instead of like, let's just go full bold. I mean, we want to be bold and going forward, but just, we said to our guys, all right, here's the process. So we're just telling our guys 1 to 3 churches, but listen, if you just get one,
the model
that they're all in, they're teachable, they want this, you want this. And we're saying to them, this is a church that wants the results, then go and work with them. We're saying we're also trying to change some of our structure and our past way of doing things. So I had to say to the guys, listen, we're saying you need to be all in with this church, and it means you're going to have to take significant amount of time and invest here. If that means you don't invest somewhere else, that is exactly what we want you to do. We want you to make this a focus, and we want you to do this because you can't, it's not a more bricks, less straw. We're saying, no, we want you to do this, and we realize other things are going to have to, and we've talked through the things that they can let go, and they're actually things that they need to let go so they can do this. And then just encouraging them to say, listen, let's not assume anything. Greg, as you're teaching, you talk about, don't assume this is going to be an easy road. Satan doesn't like this to happen. There needs to be prayer guiding it, but you've also got to be realizing there's going to be obstacles and saying, listen, it's not just going to be you meet with the pastor and they're all excited and they go do it. In fact, one of our guys started last fall with his home church, and it's been really interesting to watch in working through the process. And he said the youth pastor was really overwhelmed with the whole thing, and he's just slowed it down, and they're in their second year of really developing that. We're just trying to help our guys see that, and the more we get experience, the more we can tell our guys, hey, that's natural. I mean, I just wrote on the board, okay, it's at least a true 2-year process, the crawl, walk, run. I want to reemphasize. We're trying to say, well, what is it realistically going to look like? Because we've never been through it. We're realizing this is not, and this is the way it works with any church that we work with Word of Life. It takes 2 to 3 years for them to really get all of it implemented into their program. As far as youth leader training, we're saying identify, it might be the church has a youth pastor or the key leader, or it may not be. In the case of this church I was telling you about, David Livingston, our guy, is working with a guy that the youth pastor said, hey, let this guy lead it. We're also telling our guys to keep in mind that maybe not every youth leader is going to be all in on this thing. There might just be a couple of your team of 6 or 10. You might just have 2 who are excited about it and say, hey, it's okay. That's how you get it started, but go with what you have. And then we're saying at least have that key leader read the Gospelized book. The gold standard would be, man, give it to everybody. It's free. Appreciate you guys making that available. It's just really easy to get that out to people. We're telling the youth leader, and again, trying to get everybody just take that diagnostic. So you get that starting point. This is actually something that I think Jason Lowen said, man, that is such a great tool to figure out like where we're at, what the starting point could be. So we're telling our guys, just walk through this process with them, and then you'll kind of know where the starting point is. Again, I'm talking blind because I've not done that, but we're taking your guys' advice and as if you were working with us as a local church.
So just real quick,
yeah,
that diagnostic has changed.
Yes, I heard that you guys are changing it.
Yeah, and so real quick, we started realizing in Chicago at Lead the Cause that some youth leaders were there's so much stuff presented that they were having a hard time, synthesizing it all. So we talked about 3 numbers: 175, one vision, every teen everywhere, hearing the gospel from a friend, 7 values, and then 5 stages that match 5 of the early churches: commit, align, prioritize, accelerate, and multiply. The diagnostic now shows you which stage that your youth group or your ministry is in, based on the answer to really, I think it's 12 questions. Yeah, really short. So it kind of shows you what stage you're in and then kind of what steps you need to take next. So 175. And that, we flipped that and started leading with that in Denver. And it really helped everybody get a macro view and not get lost in all the terminologies. So
That's great. That's great. Okay, I just wrote that down. We'll try to figure out how to take that and integrate it. It's easier.
I think maybe I should take all of my in Europe in October when I've got all these countries and these leaders there. Maybe I should have them all go through the diagnostic themselves before we start out. Is that the kind of thing you're saying you did it in Denver?
Yeah, totally.
Sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
Good. Sounds good. So we're have the leadership team download the Gospel Advancing Ministry app, and again, work through that. Take the leadership team through the 4 minutes crash course of your faith, and just tell them what the basics of that. That is actually a recommendation from when we talked to Jason and Jason, that is your highest, most downloaded video, and it's like really short, very concise, very clean, easy to grasp. In fact, I taught that. I was teaching here at camp, and I went through that, and it was really interesting. I did that on the second day. So I shared the gospel the first day, went through that the second day. On the last day, I said, let's quick review. What are the 3 A's? Boom, boom, boom. They nailed it. What's the gospel across? They nailed it. And it was like, the beauty of that is you guys have done such a good job of making it really easy to grasp and easy to get. So we're just saying, go through it with the leadership team so they get it, and it really is pretty simple. And then, get the Life in 6 Words app, get the Dare to Share app, and just begin the whole process. I mean, I think part of the challenge for me initially when I was looking at it was like, wow, there's a lot. How do you sift through it? And I love your 175 concept, because you need something to hang it on so that you can get you memorize a little bit and then you can move on to the other parts. So that, I think, is going to really be the challenge, is not overwhelming a church when you come in. And that's why I think the crash course, we're having the leadership team go through it, but then we're saying now take kids through that and just, go out and actually begin sharing. That's what Jason said. Hey, just do this and then take them out. And, I'm telling our guys, I love the idea of what we do at the Dare to Share Live, where you guys say, hey, we're going to do a food drive, and say, hey, can we just ask you a question about what you think, life means in 6 words? And, Lord willing, that opens the door to share the gospel. So we're, and could basically just take I actually had the teach the full circle curriculum way up high, and Jason Lowen said, yeah, I think that's a little too quick. You need to just get the baby steps moving, getting them out, getting them started, instead of just teaching through a curriculum. And then it's like, yeah, it was too much and it overwhelmed. Then we talk about, as an area missionary, talking about the full circle curriculum, sharing that, hey, this is available, and maybe even pushing that back to mid-year, like get some things moving. So there's the Take 5 that's happening in the youth group. There's things going on like that, and the movement is starting to rise up in the youth group. Then come in and do a full 4-week series on it and encourage that. So that's kind of the process that we, through your recommendation, are telling our guys to do. And then one of the things we've done, we've got a discipleship program built into our curriculum and in our tools and so on. We call it Creative Discipleship. So we just redid that all this year. And we are doing it actually parallel with our integrating of Dare to Share into what we do. So we've got, which we didn't have before, bring a friend, having gospel conversations, like, okay, those have to be central elements in what we're encouraging a student to do. We've got a student quiet time, a devotional book, and we've integrated a cause circle into the prayer section, but we're because we go to print with that so quickly, and I mean, so much, we were way far down the road. We couldn't make all the integrations. So next year we're going to take the actual editor of that. And I read Greg, both of the devotionals you wrote. And we were trying to figure out how do we integrate some of these concepts into our quiet time. And what we decided to do is we're going to actually have a monthly page that is a gospel advancing page for the student, and taking some of those, the ask, admire, admit, and some of the concepts and things that you do. The thing we liked about it was every day there was an action step. So we'll take a few of those, and we're just going to gradually look at it. And this is where, as we get doing it and we get good at this, we can talk about how we can maybe even change that tool and make it more effective. We've actually asked all of our writers to read. We've sent them the gospel book and asked them to read it, and as much as possible in the context of what they're writing, to bring those elements into what they share. Our scripture memory, we've got the gospel, a gospel sharing verse pack. That's the Life in 6 Words verse pack with the questions. It's basically just memorizing that. Reading books, I went through all of your books and said, okay, here's 5 that we can integrate in. And if I were a youth pastor and I wanted to develop a ministry team, if I were discipling a young man, I'd say, if you're going to read any 3 books, pick 3 of these, because I want this to be on your mind. And so we're just going to encourage them. And what we'll do in our discipleship tools is we'll make sure we put DWS in front of it. They'll know that's a Dare to Share book, and that'll help the initiative. So we're just trying to integrate that into what we're doing and those would be the core kids in the youth group that are actually doing that, which are the kids that probably are going to be the ones that are going to be gospel advancing. You want to say anything?
No.
Okay. Anyway, encouraging student ministry to go to Dare to Share Live, encouraging churches to have a gospel advancing perspective at Reverb. And all we're going to do there is, this is kind of inside Word of Life lingo. It's just, we're encouraging students to be trained to counsel people who trust Christ, their friends, at a Reverb event where we share the gospel. And then also after the event, it's an all-night event, to say, train them into how to say, hey, listen, the message is over, but the invitation isn't. So give that invitation all night long. What'd you think of the message, and try to develop a gospel, conversation. And then just encouraging the whole youth group to go through the Gospel as Your Team over a period of time, just that constant drip of content from the book and just reiterating that. So that's where we're at this point. I'm sorry that took so long. Not much. Well, there's a lot to it. I don't want, I feel like sometimes maybe we even made it a little more complicated than need be.
Well, a couple things. One real quick tactical thing. We were at the Dream Center for our Care Day, and they set up the gospel conversation by saying, hey, there's a bunch of teenagers here today. I'm going to talk to you about the meaning of life and how you would describe your life in 6 words, and talk about it. So just a thought about the all-nighter Reverb. Instead of just leaving that to the kids to initiate on their own, from the stage, you can seed those conversations and set it up so it's more natural for the kids. It worked out really well.
Let's go over that one more time. I don't think I grasped what you just said.
Basically, we go and we serve the community. We play games, and we have a barbecue together. And then that's when the leader said, hey, we have teams from the community here that, are glad to have you. They invited you to be here. We also want to engage you in a conversation about God and life and meaning. And so they're going to ask you a question about, how would you describe your life in 6 words? And then let those navigate that conversation from the front, as opposed to stepped up on you and running around like crazy people. So anyway, that's
John's at the whiteboard again. Sorry.
John's at the whiteboard. I love it. John, John, thank you so much. I mean, obviously, I agree with Greg. I think we really want to, as we're rallying and trying to, it's a round table on purpose. And so, obviously we're thrilled to have everybody on the distribution list, every organization that has raised their hand and said gospel advancing ministry is important, that we want to see every team hearing the gospel from a friend in the United States by 2025. I mean, we've got some amazing organizations represented here. Chose Word of Life this time to give us kind of, this is how they are going to do it. This is some of the things that they've done, mostly because they weren't here with us in May. But you all have several things to offer.
So here's a question I have. Because obviously you guys are the gold standard for the gospel advancing strategic partner plan. I mean, that's really detailed and really awesome. I do think it would be interesting if we were able to have maybe a series of key questions to help every partner navigate through, okay, well, I mean, Youth for Christ, how are you going to navigate? They have 3-story, and it's a different unpacking of that, but the same kind of values and principles. Assembly of God, same thing. How do we, if we were able to come up with questions that help you kind of develop more specific, like how I'm going to marinate these 7 values in to our organization. Some of you can't make that decision on your own. It's a team conversation. But if we develop something like that so that every partner had a basic 2-page, 1-page, 3-page, here's what we're doing, and it can be adjusted along the way. Would that be helpful for everybody?
Yes, I would say so for us. Yes.
Okay.
The other thing too that I wanted to add is that we started at the roundtable event at YMAC with 3 very basic questions. What can our organization contribute to? How can this movement actually help our organization achieve our goals? I would probably say we can come up with some questions for sure, but I'm happy to personally jump on the phone with each one of you individually. And we can divide and conquer here at Dare to Share too. I know that, good for instance would be John Decker has been working with Phil. But we can go through. It's hard on a large conference call or big roundtable to maybe get super specific, but I do believe that Word of Life has given us a lot to think about and a lot of, it's always good to see somebody's case study and then apply it to our own organization and our own context. And so, just drop me a line, send me an email that says, hey, Deb, I'm interested in diving deeper into this. And we'll walk through that together. And then as we gather quarterly, we can bring different case studies and generate different ideas for each, person around the table, and help each other in that way.
I think it's really powerful to hear from John and what Word of Life is doing, because they've taken the movement. This really kind of, shows that this can really be a movement that's transferable.
Yes.
They picked it up. They really ran with it. They added their own to it, and those, having them, like maybe a little video by them, and here's how we took it, and would be great. It's always great to hear from another party than in addition to the people that started it, like you said, Debbie. So
yeah,
very encouraging.
I regretted not being at YMAC this year for the simple reason of being able just to testify exactly a year before that how God had used Kickstart and just the revolution that it's brought in our hearts and strategically for our ministry. I could go on and on and on about it. And so
Well, let me speak to that just
Yeah.
very briefly. I wasn't there when Greg was at our staff conference, but we have been praying for 4 years. We've gone through a transition, and in leadership, we just said we need God to do something to ignite our staff, to unify. And in August, Chris came in. We had our leadership team had read the book, and it was very, very obvious that this was a rallying cry. Their guys were extremely passionate about, we have to do this and move forward. And we had our guys read it. And even before Greg came, but as Greg came and did his thing and left, it's very obvious. And traveling after that to each of the regions, our guys are so passionate about this. And, so that's what we're excited about. It's not, we have a process and so on, but God has seemed to be working. And, our guys felt like they'd go into a church and they're beating their heads against the wall. And now they're going in and saying, Pastor, what's your vision? Like, our vision is to reach every student in this community, and we want to help you do that. And the guys get really excited about that. And they say, I want to help you, and I can. I've got resources and tools. And that's just really been excited to see our guys get really, really excited we haven't had that kind of excitement in quite a while.
When I saw guys that have been with us for years start to cry as we talked about this, because it was getting back to our original vision that we kind of lost focus. We've been reaching students, but we hadn't been equipping students to reach students like we did years ago. And so I would love for us to help any other organization. Like, you're welcome to take the document and, if that can be a help to you, if we can help you, if you want John to come and sit down with your guys and say, hey, this is how we did it and this is how we're doing it, we'd love to do that. So
I just say, give me a couple of years. So we're actually speaking from experience, and I feel like we got a lot of energy and enthusiasm. We got a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Chris puts me out there like, I don't even know how to do it.
I think that God is very happy, I'm sure, with watching us struggle together. And so, don't feel like any of us, or especially us at Dare to Share, please know, we're, this is a biblical model. It's based on the book of Acts. Our heart, honestly, is to just walk alongside. I think everybody who's listed on that distribution list would echo that same sentiment. We're all humbly walking into this because we want to see revival, right? So it's not, it really isn't about any organization as much as it is just, wanting to empower this generation to be on the forefront of that revival. And so when I see organizations working together, your offer, John and Chris, to also step up to the plate and personally spend time with others around this table is so huge. That just encourages my heart. That's what this is about. It's about networking. It is about working together. It is about bringing together your strengths and helping each other, so that's just cool.
Yeah, right. Amen. I fully agree. I'm wondering if maybe we take those 3 initial questions that we brought and we put it on a Google Doc and we let everybody add to it, adjust it, and then that kind of becomes the template, personalized partner plan for gospel advancing in our organization. And it's just something that we work on together. I think, John, because you've walked down that road, you may be able to have a couple of questions in there that would be super helpful, but everybody can contribute to it. And then we fill that out and maybe even have it ready for the next meeting, a rough run of it. And that becomes a working document internally for our organizations, but also we kind of know what everybody brings to the table, what their strategy is, and then tools and resources from, I think, maybe in one of these calls we have 1 or 2 partners share kind of, here's some gospel advancing ideas, best practices, tools, resources we have that can be used by others, or an idea or whatever. I think that's.
And we just need to
that'd be
keep
good.
plodding toward it. Annie, we're getting close to our time. I do want to just open it up for any other questions.
Well,
comments?
Question, or before we leave, I just have probably 1 minute would do it, but then I'll just jump in. And we talked about WIMAC. You all should have got an email. Some of you got spammed the first time, but I think I got reached out to some of you personally, just so you put it on your calendar. It's next May. It's the second week of May. It'll be the 14th, 15th, and 16th, and we're going to go to Philadelphia. And the American Bible Society has reached out, and they have an innovation center there that sounds pretty exciting about what they're doing in terms of engaging scriptures with the younger generation. So just that, and I think, Debbie, you've already connected with them, so we'll have another Thursday edition for this. So just make sure it's on your calendars, and if you run into any other executive leaders to pass it on. So just wanted to mention that. Also, just real quick, Kent and Alan and Chris, you're probably going to get a call from a guy named Larry Onan. And Alan, you know Larry real well. And Greg, you were there, but he's taken the point for a thing called Global Outreach 2020. So I gave him yesterday, I sent him an email, and all three of you were on it as people to contact, basically just to be aware of it. So just let you know.
Okay.
So, and John, I didn't put you on it because I thought you need to keep focused on your campus ministry link right now, so you didn't need to be fielded in that call. So,
Anyway. John, I will forward, or maybe you can just reply all with the information that you sent.
Sure. Yeah, I've got to run now to another meeting, but yeah, I'll send that out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great.
Kent, you joined us a little bit late. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? And Mr. Holbert?
Oh. No, I was unmuted. How about that? I thought I was unmuted. No, I'm good, guys. We're just gearing up for our Houston event, which will have about 7,000 students in Houston. So, but I just, I just love what you guys are doing at Word of Life. So I've just been drinking it in. I'm looking over your stuff. Great job. So thank you. You're fueling my tank. So thanks for this call, everybody.
Amen.
yeah, if you could send, that's a Word doc, right, that you guys were working off of? If you could just send that out, that'd be helpful, because I didn't capture it.
I'm pretty sure I emailed it this morning to Deb. I put a link and I opened the link up, so anybody should be able to get to that. And you're welcome.
It's a Google Drive.
It's on Google Drive.
So we're going to keep improving, working through it, but you can grab it.
Yeah, you can grab it. Use
Okay.
it. If you want, if you don't take it, I can't remember I think it's closed for editing right now. But if you want it, I'll be glad to email the Word document to you. You can. There's nothing proprietary.
Well, yeah. Then
about it.
send them how do we do that? Should we send it to Deb or to that whole distribution list? If we send the Word,
You can just grab the distribution list and send it to everybody. I think they'd
Okay.
like it.
All right, that'd be fine. Only thing I would ask is, and I know that's the whole purpose of this. Let me say a couple things. Chris, offers our services. I just feel like we're really want us right now. I feel like we're just at the beginning stages. We're more than willing to serve you guys in any way we can do that. I just feel like right now we're inadequate. And the other thing I would say is we just constantly feel like the more input we can get from everybody, you guys have been a great help to us. And that's really why we've got such a great document, because we've gotten the feedback. And I think that's what's going to be the strength.
yeah. So if you got ideas, please let us know.
We need them.
Perfect. Mr. Weed, Alan, would you close us in prayer, please?
Sure. Thanks, Father, for the time together. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for John and Chris and the great attention to detail and development that gift that you've given them. It's a wonderful gift and an encouragement to all of us as we seek to get the gospel to every kid. Lord, breathe more energy into what they're doing, so they can help all of us be more effective to see every student reached. Bless the rest of the day. Pray for Kent and that team as they get ready for Houston. Had a great time with the students there. And all the other things that are going on, Father, we commit them to you and ask that you keep our eyes focused on the Great Commission, and, the importance of that as far as what our life should be about. Not only for encouraging and building systems so that that can happen, but it's been shared. Give us opportunities so that we're actually sharing our faith as well. We're seeing you apply these things directly through us. Thank you for the people we meet today who are on a spiritual journey, and you would use us to speak to them about your Son. Commit the day to you. Thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, I just happen to think, some of you may know this, but most of you know Gary Hartke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He just got elevated to the top spot for the entire International Nazarene denomination. So we've got two former youth guys now with Gary and then Dan Coy, right? So I thought that's kind of interesting.
Doug Clay.
Doug Coy, I'm sorry. Doug, yeah.
All that youth ministry with authority and a budget.
Yeah, well, there you go, you know.
But the thing you got to realize is that adults are just big kids. So we're, if we can help the denominations understand that, we're way ahead. And
Right.
a couple of them are getting it. That's good.
That's awesome.
See you, gentlemen.
Sounds good.
Good
Love
seeing
you
you.
guys.
Okay.
God bless you. Thanks.
Thank you.